the session, and so it's up there in the corner for you to remind you, but your face could be public. So if you object to that, use your black screen. Okay, so I'm going to turn the stage over to the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts for some brief welcome remarks. So Dr. Ruben Ellis is...
I'm here improvising.
Okay.
Thanks, Linda.
Uh-huh.
It's great to see all of you here. I appreciate that a lot. And it's a pleasure to welcome you today on behalf of the college to our event in the footsteps of MLK Jr. I'm happy also to welcome our featured readers today, Nikki Black, Natasha Dion, Beverly LaFontaine, Marcus Omari, and the college's own Mike Somskin. I also want to thank Linda and Rachel Farnsworth and Lisa Cooper and everyone else who's involved in putting this on. Initiated by former Dean Douglas Kramer, the college has been honoring the work of Dr. King for many years now. This is the first time we've attempted it online. But perhaps that's all more so appropriate because the life of Dr. King transcends place and indeed time. It is work that recognizes the origins of the civil rights movement, animates us during today's profound need for social justice and equality. It is about the future, a better one. So thanks for coming, and I'll turn things back over to Linda.
Okay, great. So Beverly, I don't think can hear us, which might be a problem, but I don't know. We'll communicate somehow through the chat. So I'm going to just ask our featured readers to start. We have 5 featured readers today. And then anyone else who would like to offer a reading on behalf or in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Can jump in after that and read. So Nikki, in alphabetical order, you are first. And what I'm going to ask all of our features to do is just introduce themselves briefly to the group, a few words about who you are and what you do, and then read for us. So Nikki Black.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. An honor to be here. Can you hear me okay? Okay. All right, so Nikki Black. I am a native and lifelong resident of Los Angeles, California. Inglewood is my hometown, so that's a suburb of LA, for anyone that doesn't know that. And I am a writer. I'm a mom. I am an intersectional feminist. I am a radical womanist. I am an anti-oppression educator. And I have been profoundly impacted and touched by Dr. King's work and legacy in the second civil rights movement, because I think a lot of times we just shine a light on the 1960s civil rights movement and speak about it as if it were the first one to happen in the United States, but it's actually the second one because there was a civil rights movement after Reconstruction, after slavery was abolished. And so the second iteration of the civil rights movement, which really saw no end, we are still continuing that work and we are still being inspired by his legacy. And so it's just really great to be here. So I'm going to read a few poems. A lot of my work is related to social justice. So I'm just going to read some more. And this is a newer poem that I haven't decided about, but we'll share it with you, and then, we'll see what it becomes later. When I'm sure I cannot write another word, I remember your letter. When I'm certain I can endure no more, I replay your record 29 arrests long. When I'm convinced I can say no more, I remember your sermon. When I am Ready to eulogize redemption, I recall that once I sided with supremacy, did not invent it, did not interfere. You say history will have to record that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. I wonder who I am. When I fall silent, I remind myself, I want to be good. I must earn what I want to become. I am required to labor to be held gently in memories of folks who witnessed me. When it feels protest has been placated out of my system, my body insists that Bloody Sunday is more than a memory. It is a fate whose hand we grasp. It is the octave in which our voices harmonize. It is the squad cars, sun-baked hood, our faces smack. It is the back of similar squad cars disappearing Black bodies. It is cellular memory, the way you emerged from a cell in Birmingham as Jesus emerged from the tomb. It is the regret that you did not rise from Memphis. Then I realized my work is here in front of me, to write, to endure, to speak, to insist that we can be made right, that there is still time to acknowledge our divinity, to abolish, to repair, to be well, to have joy, and to know peace. That is that poem. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's see. I wrote this collection of poems back in 2013 when I was pregnant with my daughter. Trayvon Martin had been murdered. George Zimmerman was on trial. I remember sitting at my job at the time. I worked in apparel for a denim company, and you could literally count the Black people on one hand. There were like 5 of us in the whole company of probably thousands of people. And I remember going to work every day and listening to the trial every day at my desk. And the incredible isolation that I felt and the loneliness knowing that I was one of only maybe a handful of people in that entire building that cared about this case, that was listening to this case, that was invested in the outcome. And that was even more amplified by the fact that I was pregnant. And this was a trial about a child murder, and all of the weight of that. So I wrote a lot at that time, and I ended up compiling it into one little chapbook called Uppity Negress. So I'll share a few pieces from that collection. And this one is entitled America, the Abusive Spouse, dated November 26, 2014. This is not really a poem, it's more of a journal entry. This is what it's like to be Black in America. It doesn't matter how pretty you smile, what you wear, how you straighten your hair. It doesn't matter how many babies you bear and name John and Sally, how you avert your eyes so as not to challenge anyone with your gaze. It doesn't matter if you have dinner ready on time, if you're smart, if you say please and thank you, yes sir, and yes ma'am. It doesn't matter how fast you run, how well you dance, how hard you work, how much of your culture you share. It doesn't matter how much of yourself you're willing to ignore or erase to assimilate. You will still get that ass beat. You are dependent on America. You love America. You've been with America for so long. So where are you gonna go? America tells you, you ain't shit, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're worthless, and no one will want you, so you stay. Sometimes America says it will do better. America says it won't beat you anymore. America brings you flowers. America passes the Voting Rights Act. It gives you a Black president, and then here come the fists, the kicks, the noose, the whip. Here come the burning crosses, the dogs, the fire hoses, the church bombings, the assassinations, the Tuskegee experiment. Here come the crack epidemics, the COINTELPRO, the Jasper, Texas, the stop and frisk, the wrongful imprisonment. Here comes the prison industrial complex, the three strikes law, the war on drugs, the genocides. Here comes the execution by cops without due process, again and again and again. This poem is called, this poem is called Black Privilege. In a racially imperialist nation such as ours, it is the dominant race that reserves for itself the luxury of dismissing racial identity while the oppressed race is made daily aware of their racial identity. It is the dominant race that can make it seem that their experience is representative. Bell Hooks. It is only now at 31 that I've come to learn the true texture of my hair, how it ripples, coils, battles gravity in its natural state, how it loves avocados, olive oil, and the rain. It must have hated me, wielding a hot comb, a flat iron, a blow dryer. It must have tensed up at the mere mention of a relaxer. After the procedure, it fell into a deep depression, lost weight, became lazy, laid down across my scalp like a murdered body. And when it decided it couldn't take it anymore, committed suicide, throwing itself to the floor root first. If I were 100% myself at all times, I might be unrecognizable. It is often that I turn down my melanin slightly before I leave the house to a less potent, more tolerable level. This betrayal of self is due in part to questioning one's own validity. It is also a survival tactic, as too much Blackness arouses suspicion, initiates feelings of discomfort in others, causes them to call their safety into question. Surviving the wilds of post-racial America, my color knows this lesson better than we know what to call ourselves. Too much Blackness will make others imagine something sinister under the protective cover of a hoodie worn in the rain. Will transform a wallet or a bag of Skittles into a dangerous weapon. Will turn your back into a perfectly placed target. Your dead body will be discarded after it has been drug tested. No one will wonder what happened to you or bother to find out who you belong to. It is easy to go missing, easier to miss an opportunity for employment, for education, for a suitable, safe place to raise your family. It is a puzzling juxtaposition to be Black in the world, to be both invisible and conspicuous all at once, to be irrelevant, disposable, hated, hunted. It is confusing to be informed of your color as often as possible, then assured that it doesn't matter, treated as if you stole the air, ridiculed when you express concerns that there may be more to what appears to be systemic injustice and cruelty reserved, especially for everyone that looks like you. It is absurd, this perilous life, the many massacres that will wrestle your kicking spirit into the tomb of your body if you are pliable and silent, the fires you will set if you speak, the way the world will come at your neck because of the threat reloading in your eyes, your skin, a deserted dark alley, the lack of compromise in the chamber of your throat, a seance stirring the bones of every dead African slave in the ocean. That is that poem. I'm going to do two more, and then I'll be out of your hair. This is also not so much a poem as it is a journal entry. So I have two girls. One is 7, one is 21. And so I wrote this for my 21-year-old at that time. It's called Said Crossbow to Arrow. I told my teenager to stay woke, I told her to play dead if she has to. I told her she's got to be clever. I said, keep a passport. I told her to leave America forever one day and don't come back. I told her, I don't think I will live to see the changes, but she might. I told her that she could change things. I told her that my faith and hope are in her and Rosie. I told her that she comes from people that invented everything and never to forget it. I said, everything the light touches is yours. I told her to stop minimizing herself with these whack-ass grades because global white supremacy, patriarchy, and the media is already leading a successful campaign to minimize her. I told her to save the very best that she has to offer and give it only to her people and not to this country to benefit from or exploit. I told her to do everything she can to minimize contact with the police. I said, trouble will find you, but try not to go to it. I told her that Jesus' disciples found themselves on the sea in a terrible storm after they had followed directions. Following directions and doing what you're supposed to do won't always keep you safe. But it's okay, I said. You can handle whatever comes. I said, don't go through life with fear in your heart. I told her to be big. I told her to be who God has already declared she is. I told her to be bold and don't ask for permission to do so. I told her to get it popping. I said, you got this. I am but a crossbow, just trying to aim these arrows. That is that piece. And finally, there's a poem called Some Days that I feel like I read it all the time, often, because it sums it up, and this is what it is. Some days, all I can do is try. Some days, got to pray a body out of bed, got to coax into some clothes, got to work hard to make some easy happen. Some days be turbulence before the sun gets high. Some days be apathy. Some days be needing somebody bigger than self. Some days be wanting familiar hands, be needing a mama to predict, a friend to advise, a God to move. Some days be laying a dare down, be demanding grown folks prove their shit talk be more than trumpet solo. Some days be a bet, be odds. Some days be math. Some days be something I'm not good at. Some days, all I can do is look like I know what I'm doing. Some days need to become the subject of a stern look, need reprimanding, a thorough cussing out. Some days need collars snatched, ain't got no home training, got too much back talk, need backhand and leather belts. Some days need to be told that you ain't playing these games. Some days I gotta assemble some fast, gotta find energy to roll my eyes, need to locate my hip to put my hand on it. Some days be fingerprints, some days be a rusted deadbolt. Some days all I can do is take the door off the hinges, gotta break into something, gotta take without asking, gotta mask, gotta smash and grab. Some days be a bandit, some days be bulletproof glass, some days take a hostage, brandish a weapon, keep a motor running, be getting away. Some days be a threat. Some days won't be brought to justice. Some days all I can do is armor. All I can do is bandage. Gotta set a bone. Gotta be my own surgeon. Gotta scalpel and stitch. Some days be in want of anesthesia. Some days be a wound talking. Some days be salt. Be a 40-day flood. Be a 40-year wilderness. Be Egypt. Some days be a sea splitting in two. Some days all I can do is wait and see. Some days be a road to marry feet to, a horizon for eyes, a promise that will not break itself. Some days all I can do is try, and every time it is more than enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. That was wonderful. Appreciate you coming. Next on the list, I think, is Natasha Dion. So if you want to say a few words of introduction for yourself, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you so much for reading that, and thank you everybody for having me. This is the first time I've had an opportunity to they said, just read something. And I was like, from the book, it was like, no, about Martin Luther King. And as Nikki was reading, just all of these things were coming to my mind. So I'm probably going to change up my plan a little bit. So I'm Natasha. I'm a mother of two. I have a daughter and a son. They're almost a year apart. They're not a year apart. And don't judge me. And my youngest has special needs, and he speaks about 30 words. He's 14 and he's beautiful. My daughter is typically able. I'm a criminal defense attorney here in LA. I've been one for almost 20 years. I worked in insurance defense, and now and for the last 10 years or so, I've done criminal defense. I'm also a law professor, creative writing professor, and I'm a novelist. So, and as Nikki was talking, I hear all these references to Jesus. So I haven't made this announcement, but I'm in seminary right now at Fuller. I'm studying psychology. I specifically want to help, the Black community and the marginalized to sort of sort through this mess and help us, organize our emotional lives. And what does self-care look like? It doesn't always look like getting your nails done, your hair done. It's finding things that are life-giving, and how do we do that in our communities that are hurting, even as the first Black vice president is about to be, herself tomorrow. So it's just a lot of pain, a lot of mixed feelings, because like Nikki read about, we get these flowers every once in a while, but we also know what's coming next. It's all the bad stuff. So I just wanted to give 3 examples that I gave to my class at the seminary that I thought was helpful, because people have asked me about what is microaggression. People know what that means very generally. What if it's not a cross burning or another child being murdered by police? So I gave them this example because my husband is white, he's English. I went to England and married a white guy from there. And he was from the same small town. And actually our son's genetic issue, he has a rare condition, 300 people in the world, is because we share the same gene. So even though he's white from England, from this tiny little town, and never left, and my family's from Alabama, never left since the end of American slavery until my parents came to LA in the 70s, we share the same gene, as if we're cousins. So when they talk about race, I know, like literally, I know what it means genetically to be the same, because it says so much. It speaks so much about where we're from and who we are. So anyway, when I first married my husband, I moved to England, and I was seen by a doctor. And I remember thinking I had a hernia right at my navel. And I went to the doctor who was English. And I remember standing next to, where you sit down to be examined. I said, I think I have a hernia. He says, well, what are your symptoms? I told him what they were. And I said, would you like to look at it? And he was like, no, I don't need to do that. I said, but you need to like touch and see there's like a hole. He's like, no, I don't want to touch you. And I was like, that's odd. Well, maybe it's a cultural thing. And I remember being so hurt and brokenhearted, walking out to my husband saying, you know what? This doctor won't even touch me. I think he's racist. And my husband, who's white, is like, no, why would he be racist? He's been treating me all my life. I've never had this problem. I was like, you know what? There's racism in the medical field. So fast forward to the birth of my son, 364 days after my daughter was born. And I remember telling the doctors, I'm in a lot of pain. The baby is coming. They were like, oh no, your baby, you have time. And I was like, you don't believe my pain. I just had a baby less than a year ago. I know this baby is coming out. And it was almost like I was being, like they didn't believe even my pain as a Black woman. And I remember no doctors or nurses being there and my husband literally catching my son as I gave birth to him. And I had no doctor, no nurse around. And my husband had to deliver my son at Kaiser Hospital. And I said, do you believe me that they don't believe our pain even in a medical situation, because Black women have a mortality rate of third world countries in this country, in the United States. Fast forward to a year later, where that hernia that I had because of the pregnancy, it split open and I had to have emergency surgery. And the doctors had to perform on that hernia that I had back in England, that they said I didn't have one. And my husband had to call to say, my wife needs pain medication. She's in a lot of pain, as I was waking. And they threatened to call security on him at Kaiser again, saying, and this is not about, I wrote about this experience. I told them, they apologized, whatever. But what I'm showing you is how racism affects everything. It's not just cross burnings. And these stories that Nikki is telling you that you'll hear today is not just something of the past. It affects our everyday. How our doctors treat us, how other people treat us. And I'm an attorney with all this experience, the best schools. I worked in San Francisco, lived in a penthouse apartment, drove an Audi and a Mercedes at this time before I walked away from all that. So it doesn't matter. What she's saying, it doesn't matter how much you smile, how much you dance, what your hair looks like. It doesn't matter, I'm still Black. My husband doesn't doubt that anymore. And we still have to walk out and they still look at him as if he doesn't understand. But he also knows that this isn't his story to tell. So when I think about the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., it's saying, you don't have to treat me better, just treat me like I'm a human being. And I've even had to tell somebody, treat me like I'm a 120-pound white girl with blonde hair who's having this baby for the first time. Maybe then you could see me. When you see a police officer shoot a Black man, pretend that that's a dog. And maybe you would have some compassion. Why would he do that to that dog? That dog wasn't even attacking him. The dog was just sitting there. He sat, he complied. Imagine. And that I even have to give that example breaks my heart. So when I think about Dr. Martin Luther King, I think about what he was asking for. Is that the blindness? It's not the blindness, because there's nothing wrong with blindness. There's nothing wrong with people who are blind. They are blessed. But it's when people who are blind think they can see, and then they're leading everybody. It's this way. And Black people or other people, marginalized people, are saying, no, I can actually see. That's the wrong way to go. And they're saying, no, it's this way. And we all got to follow. And we're invisible because they can't see. So when I think about Dr. Martin Luther King, that's what I think about. And is it okay if I share an image right now? Okay, I'm gonna share this image because I want you guys to think about this for a second. And this is an image at the Lorraine Motel. Can you all see that okay? It's just a picture of Dr. Martin Luther King. You see Reverend Jesse Jackson, and I think that's Abernathy on the other side of him. But you see Jesse Jackson is laughing, Abernathy's looking somewhere, but you see this horrified look right there on Dr. Martin Luther King's face. Can you guys all see that? This is seconds before he was assassinated, that image. And so when I think about the legacy, I want you to see, well, I wanted to make it personal for you and not just to me. So I'm gonna read what I've written because I think about how can we do good in this unkind time and in the face of fear. So the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to me is to keep doing good, especially in this unkind time. Not only because you value your life, but because you value the life of others. In 2018, I was at a conference in New York. And while sitting in the front row of the room with maybe 200 or 300 people, I was asked whether I thought words were dangerous. And I said yes, because I had always known that words could cost me my life. My mother sung in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s church choir. And when he was assassinated, it sent ripples through her community and through generations and through time. And it reaches me here even decades later. And I'm still trembling. Even though people now call Dr. Martin Luther King a hero, back then he was one of the most hated men in America. And I say this because if you're doing good, no matter what, Your legacy and your life will touch people long after you're gone, even after you've lived to a ripe old age. So do good. And I also want to give you this warning that not everybody who will be on your side or who should be on your side will be. But you need to stop blaming them. Your job is to survive and to do good despite them. Your job is to be true to your story and your journey, because when you die, it's only you are responsible for what you've done. So can you guys say this name with me? Isola Ware Curry. Isola Ware Curry.
Zola Ware Curry.
Thank you. And I want to say her name because, I've just finished my new novel that's out in November. So it's still being worked on, but I just lost this section of Isola Ware Curry, and I wanted to just read it to you. Isola Ware Curry was a raving mad Black woman, maybe like me, or like I may seem to some people. And Isola once stabbed a man in the chest with a steel letter opener while that man was autographing books at his book signing. 2 of his ribs had to be cut in surgery, and the surgeon, who had a Christian background, joked that women have always cost men their ribs, if not their hearts. And the surgeon said that if that man had sneezed, it would have inched that opener's steel tip into his heart's aorta, and he would have drowned in his own blood. But Isola didn't intend to kill the man, just to warn him. If she intended to kill him, she had a pistol in her bra. The ironic thing is that same man would later be killed by someone else, a different stranger. And while he was still lying in his own pool of blood with a new wound, this time to his head, somebody else noticed that his chest had healed. And inside the hotel room where he was staying with friends, his luggage was unpacked, his suitcase was unzipped and open, and inside was his shaving cream and hairbrush and his book called Strength to Love. He knew that his words might cost him his life, and he wrote them anyway. And so this story has no obvious point, except that the man who Isola had stabbed was Dr. Martin Luther King, months before he was assassinated at the Lorraine Hotel. And even though he faced constant odds and the risk to his life, he wrote anyway. And I believe that every reading that I get the privilege to be at, I feel like I'm there for a reason and I have an opportunity to share something. And if there's readers on this call right now, I want you to know that even in this dark time, even when you feel like things are chasing you down and people are against you, and even your friends are laughing on one side or somewhere else on the other side, while you see how it looks so bad, because Martin Luther King knew he saw something out there. You could see the terror in his face while his friends laughed. You have to be like him and keep going, keep walking, because there was an Isola before there was Lorraine Hotel. If your life was required to you today, this is the question that I have to ask myself every day. If my life was required from me today, would I be happy with what I'm doing right now or what I'm working toward, whether that's as a student or as a professional? Can I claim this life? Even if I'm resting, do I need this right now? So I hope to leave you with that question. I know this wasn't a proper reading, but I got to do what I want. Thank you so much for letting me. But if your life was required tonight, since we all have that same appointment, what will you have left in your suitcase? Martin Luther King left his words, his story, Strength to Love. And I hope that encourages somebody. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. That was lovely, really very powerful. Solomon, where are you? What did Beverly, she's not here, right?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I didn't get any contact information. I was just walking her through the steps of getting on the computer audio, and then she disappeared. Okay. All right.
She's been having trouble with her Wi-Fi, so it might just, be a lingering issue at home with that. I think what I'll do is go to Marcus, and I have the poem that Beverly was going to read. that she wrote about MLK, and I'll come back to it at the end if we still have time. But Marcus Omari, I'm going to turn the stage over to you.
Perfect. How's my audio, everybody? Thumbs up. Can you hear me? Perfect. There we go. Oh my God, man. What a blessing to be in the midst. I sound like a guest preacher that's just walking up to the podium. It's just a blessing to be in the midst today, just giving honor. Honestly, I hear Nikki and I go, damn, man, I was not prepared. And when I say prepared, meaning, I don't know, has it been a decade or so? It feels, if it hasn't, it felt like it, but it was just so amazing to hear your words and just a reminder of what a balance you are and so many writers are to our community, where when you don't hear their voices for so long, you don't realize what's missing until you hear it again and go, oh, I remember that feeling, that Nikki Black feeling. Same thing, when I get up and I hear Natasha speaking, whatever she's doing, sharing from her book or just pontificating, right? When she gets going, I'm like, oh man, here it comes. Let me get my notes out. I'm getting ready for a poetry reading. I should be taking notes on this thing. But I'm going to slide back into some poetry. Let me take the candy out of my mouth. So all my kids won't be yelling at me when they ask me about my reading, which they will. Mr. Omar, how was your reading? I'd be like, I did everything wrong. So 3 poems for you. The first one, In Memoriam Martin Luther King Jr. by June Jordan, because June Jordan. I mean, she is who she is. The second one, we'll get to that in the third one. But In Memoriam of Martin Luther King Jr. I'll share something quick about this. I'm working on this poem with some teens about a week ago. I discovered a new interpretation of this poem. And I've had this poem and loved it for years, but it feels different as of a week ago. Honey, people murder mercy. USA. The milkland turned to monsters. Teach to kill, to violate, pull down, destroy the weekly freedom growing fruit from being born. America. Yesterday, today, rip, rape, exacerbate, despoil, disfigure, crazy running threat, the deadly thrall, appall belief, dispel the wildlife, burn the breast, the onward tongue, the outward hand, the form the normal, rainy riot, sunshine, shelter, wreck of darkness, derogate, delimit, blank, explode, deprive, assassinate, and batten up like bullets. They fatten up the raving greed, reactivate a springtime, terrorizing death by men by more than you or I can stop. They sleep who know a regulated place or pulse or tide or changing sky, according to some universal stage direction, obvious like shore-washed shells. We share an afternoon of mourning, in between, no next predictable, except for wild rehearsal, bleach the black, long, lunging ritual of fright, insanity, and more, deplorable abortion, more and more. Woo. Yeah, we got writers and readers in the room. June Jordan was a late influence in my life, but I found myself in college stealing the right book and never took it back. Never took it back to the library. Changed my life. So thank you, and forgive me for keeping that book. Let me jump off this screen so I can get to the next poem. Perfect. Lucille Clifton. Again, the legacy of Lucille Clifton. She wrote a wonderful poem that people quote often called Won't You Celebrate With Me? The ending lines being, come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. Those words echo to just about every person who reads the poem, and it hits home. This piece that I wrote is in memoriam of Lucille Clifton. It's also in the spirit of Sekou Sundiata. And it was also inspired by Bell Hooks. So I'm really just leaning on a lot of inspiration to get writing done. It's called The First Drum, Black Love Is. The first drum, struck in shame and sin, or so they say, and so we sneak up on it. Like thieves in the night, the fight of flightless cygnets baptized out by the bullet and the lash. We were taught we ought know better, if nothing else, and some still fear the holy water, and some can't swim to save their lives. Come and celebrate with me an amalgamation of legacy, an appreciation of tribal currency, salvation's riptide beneath the skin. Lift imperfect starshine to the heavens, that a red clay sound found damned at our feet might fall afresh upon the earth. A love levee breach barreling down Wall Street, drowning out a cacophony of colonial brass. In faith we hold hands and hold class in percussive rhythm, blood melodies made in sun-filled dark times, just to guard our way. And we shall not lose sight or sound of ourselves in 2/4, 4/4, 808s, or otherwise known as soul. It's a spiritual thing for non-believers. It's a rapture for those willing to suspend belief and call it home. In the doorway we stand, a happily, nappily harmony of hues, unashamed of tenor and tone, with neither model nor metronome. It's hard to measure across time what it means to be, what it truly means to be unafraid. Come celebrate with me a reclamation of intimacy, a people born romantically inclined to overcome death on the daily and beyond. All moonlight, we learn to love ourselves as ourselves, our gaze, our own. We are known for this freedom. Children of the chosen, behold, the only thing greater than yourself within yourself. Show and tell the skin, the rope, the shell. Refresh unabashedly at the well as we gather once again. Kemet invocation begins in the dark roar of the drum. Whew. Man, as I was reading there, I was like, "Ooh, man, I even got a Toni Morrison reference in there." That's the wonderful thing about poetry. You'll read it and you go, "Man, nobody may ever catch that." But God, dog, man, I love the fact that I dropped that in there. There's a Toni Morrison reference in there too. All right, last poem. So we went from more hating and hurt to more healing and love. This is a mindful poem, and I'll wrap up with this. Mindful, aware, open to endless inward possibilities, horizon focused till our rep. What am I saying there? Retina. All right, let's go back. Mindful, aware, open to endless inward possibilities, horizon focused till our retina ruptures, till clouds circling our heads float across our pupils, and we learn today what it means to settle into the eye of our storms, dance at the center of our soul's journey. Mindful, aware, open to restoration disguised as an unclenched fist. When we are done fighting ourselves, when we realized that the dust we've been holding on to is the only thing holding us back, the particles of regret gathered with tears mold mounds that form mountains we spend a lifetime trying to get over. There are mountains in your hand and much, much more. Mindful, aware, open to fulfillment vis-a-vis the unknown, embracing of uncertainty, caressing the calamity of tongue, kissing catastrophe, all sloppy and clumsy like your first kiss behind the bleachers sophomore year, like a post-prom dream come true, like you knew what the summer of broken yearbook promises would bring, and you kissed us still. It's time we schedule forgiveness on our calendar. Mark boldly our anniversaries of guilt sobriety. Elevate our vision of clarity. Bend and lean into a posture of peace. Align our breath with our beliefs and hold that pose. And hold that pose. And hold it. Hold it. Hold it. That's it. Woo, woo. I hear the love in the silence. Thank you all so much. And you know, I didn't even introduce myself. Marcus Amari, I'll drop my website in the thing. Thank you all so much. Sorry.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for coming. Mike, you are wrapping up the features for us.
I'm really honored to be here with three of the greatest writers in Southern California, Nikki Black, Natasha, and Marcus. I've been blessed enough to know each of these writers for several years and have done many readings with them over the years. And it's really beautiful to be here in communion with you today. And thank you so much. Yeah, I'm just gonna take a breath and appreciate this moment for a moment. Well, I have one poem, and I'm just going to read a quick quote from Martin Luther King. This is my favorite quote from a letter from a Birmingham jail. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. I love that quote. I really love that quote. And that's something that I think a lot about. And there comes a time when we do have to stand for what we believe in and say something. And what he was saying about the silence of the white moderate. And I think in this time period, you know, here he said that 57 years ago, and it could have been said yesterday. So here is my poem, Martin's Dream. And I stand in solidarity with Nikki and Natasha and Marcus, and it's great to be here. Let freedom ring for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., your heroic struggle against American injustice, epic like Frederick Douglass. The land of the free, a fallacy. You call for human dignity and common humanity. You asked, what are we doing for others? You lived in unconditional love, even in the face of hate. Your praxis, a communion of brotherhood. Your power, a beloved community. Your objective moral order spoke truth to power. Like Langston Hughes, you deferred no dreams. Cognizant that Jim Crow America's white moderates and neo-Confederates justified their transgressions in false religion, acting in opposition to Christ's tradition with enough irony to still call themselves Christians. More like masters of materialism and militarism, utilizing racism to spread imperialism, you withdrew cooperation from the corrupt system. Your civil disobedience echoed around the world. The power of loving your enemy. You asked, what does it really mean to be human? Your position based in respect, even to those who didn't deserve it. You aligned with the moral arc of the universe. You knew love was the only force strong enough to transform hearts filled with hatred. Your faith sacred. Words that burned like a fiery sun, burning with righteousness and mindfulness like your brother Thich Nhat Hanh. An emissary for justice in the name of love, your words and actions echo across space and time. Thank you, everybody. And Martin Luther King, he expanded space and time. You know, his words will live on forever. And here's to Martin Luther King, and here's to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Does someone have a burning desire to read something that they brought with them? Otherwise, I can read Beverly's poem as well. Why don't I read Beverly's poem? She published this poem in Mariah Literary Magazine, which is Woodbury's literary magazine, in our very first issue in 2017. It's a haibun, which is a Japanese form of poetry that is a two-part poem, a prose poem followed by a little haiku. And the idea with a haibun is that the weight of the long prose piece needs to match the weight of the tiny little haiku at the end. And so this is based on a true story. It's called My Mother and MLK. Her mom grew up with MLK in Birmingham. And so this is a poem that is autobiographical. My Mother and MLK by Beverly LaFontaine. It was December 1955, and my mother, always a lady but true to her thoughts, reacted with surprise when America's newscaster, Gabriel Heder, spoke the name of the newly appointed leader of the Montgomery bus boycott. My mother, she of the good manners, the pragmatic mind, the well-laid plan faithfully executed, also valued a starched blouse, thin and impermeable, the silken shirt, fanned from the lap's throne. Not he, the preacher's son, 17 years her junior. She remembered too well the little beanhead boy with whom she had to share the car's rear seat once a month when she was a teenager. He was a jumping jack, a whirligig of comet energy as the car chugged its way through Birmingham to his father's church, and how she dreaded those Sundays in the back seat. That day in 1955, Heder's 15-minute broadcast was loud and clear to the land. Negroes are rising, boycotting the buses of Montgomery, and their leader is young and cunning, with a voice so sonorous, bells will cease their clanging. His name is Martin Luther King, Jr. That brat, my mother muttered through pursed lips, as we all leaned into the radio's speaker, hope alive. Did cherry trees bloom in Montgomery that year? How long must we wait? So I knew she would want me to read that since the technology failed her today. So anyone else want to share something?
I have something very small. Yeah, it wouldn't take much long. But I'm Brandon Webster. I'm a second-year graphic design student, and here what I wrote is I had a dream, and in this dream, Martin Luther King Jr. had seen my group of friends at a park. He then began to shed tears. I believe those tears were saturated with joy and abundance of bliss. His life's work was worth it, lighting the torch to be passed on to a brighter future. He seen the many nationalities that take part in my group, and he sat there in awe, almost as if people were never categorized by color, but just as being human. And that's it. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate everyone for talking here. It really gave me an kind of a look at what it means to write poetry and like just how powerful it can really be. And it really inspired me to do more with my work. So thank you very much.
Hey, Brandon, tell them about your mixtapes and your music. Folks, Brandon is a musician and a producer and an MC, and he's in his second class with me now, and you've always been incredible. Tell them a little bit about your work, Brandon. I love it always, man.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've been making music for a little bit now, maybe like 3-4 years or so now, and I've just now started producing more. But I've ever since I was in Mike's class like last semester, and he had like second day of school, he had me get in front of the class to perform. And after that, I really started thinking on better ways I can portray my poetry. So I've been writing a lot more. I could put in one of my links real quick because I know we're at the end of our time right now. I don't know if everyone here has Spotify. Sorry, while I get this.
Brandon, you're on your third album now? Are you on your third? You've already done 3 albums, right?
3 albums and like 5 mixtapes, but right now I've released a little album, and it's mostly all production I've been working on, and I've just released a song at the beginning of the year this year, of producing and just like some guitar in the background, because I've been trying to learn the guitar for a little bit now. So yeah, I've been doing that.
Brandon, just let me get this in here real quickly. Just as another outlet for your art, Woodbury has a music club, a student music club that I just wanted to make sure you're aware of. And it's a good group of folks. I'm the faculty mentor, I guess is what they call me in there. And I just want to make sure you're aware of it. We'd love to have you.
I have heard of it, but I don't think I've really quite joined. I would love to join the.
Kane, well, you can either email myself or Kane Thompson is the student president. Kane Thompson is his name.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
Thank you for sharing the link, Brandon. That's great.
Oh yeah, of course. I appreciate y'all.
I think we are out of time for today, but I just want to once again thank our guests for coming and sharing with us. And it was incredibly powerful, and I really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, you guys.
Thank you all. Stay blessed, stay safe.
To be continued.
To better days.
Thanks, Solomon.
Take care, everybody.